Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. I am Sylvia Hayes, and you are watching Good News at Primetime. Today, we're talking about should we teach critical race theory in the schools? Should we teach it in the schools? That is the topic for today. It's a lot going on right now. A lot of people don't want to know about their history. Of course, they tell us to forget about their history and all that kind of stuff. But before we get into that, I want to talk about my book, Power Thoughts, Empowering You to Be Successful in Life. This book is a very powerful book. It encourages you to do so many good things for your life, encourages you to do well and to think of others. And the power thought for today, which is coming out of this book, is never look down on someone unless you're reaching down to pick them up. Never look down on someone unless you're reaching down to pick them up. A lot of people look down on people because of their race, because of their monetary stature, how much money they have. If they don't have a lot of money, they look down on you. Sometimes they look at you because you're fat, because you don't look as good as they think you should look, and all of that. People look down on you for different reasons. But never look down on a person because, you never know what's going on in their lives. You never know. And so just to get started in this conversation, I'm going to go right on ahead and bring in my co-host, Mr. Reggie Drama. Hey, Reggie.
What's up there, Miss Sylvia? I'm doing good. I'm feeling great. It's a good day to be alive. Good day to be here in America. A good day to have this particular conversation. And I think it's one that's kind of complicated at times, but once we kind of figure it out and unpack it, unpackage it, we can get a good snapshot of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a complicated thing because I can see where you don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable because Florida governor passed a law. I guess he passed it or signed it or something saying that you cannot teach critical race theory in the schools. And this is like 1st through 12th grade. So it's like, okay, a lot of stuff being taught to those kids 1st through 12th grade, a lot of it is being taught by their parents on racial injustice. So for me, they can see a lot of stuff on TV, but then their parents are teaching them a lot of stuff as well. And they need to know the right direction to go in. Sometimes kids can look at their parents and say, Dad, I don't think that's right. You shouldn't be treating anybody like that. Why can't I bring John over? Just because he's a different race. People, I have known for grandparents to say, you cannot bring that child into my house because it was of a different race. That grandparent refused to love a black child, a half black child, Even though it's his blood, they refuse. And as children need to understand that, and for a smaller child, it hurts them internally, to know that they're being rejected by their grandparents. And we should be loving all the time, regardless as to what color it is, blood or not. We should love all the time. And this critical race theory is so important. It is so important that we teach the right
Well,
thing.
well, when we, like I said, it's a very complex thought process. Uh, Really, when we say critical race theory, that's just a subcomponent of a bigger thing, which is critical thinking. Uh, when you start to unpackage how people look at it, why it's so controversial. Now, you immediately started talking about history, okay, in particular, black and brown history. Well, that's not what everybody sees when they talk about critical race theory. Uh, One thing, it comes out of a thought process called critical thinking. A critical thinking, I forgot one of the guys, but one of them was Karl Marx. Now, if you're familiar with Karl Marx, he's a pioneer when it comes down to communism and socialism. Socialism and communism. When you think about those two things and the effects that it has on the American psyche, that alone puts this into a complex situation. And then when you look at what we commonly call critical race theory today, there were many pioneers. There was a brother, Derek Bell, is one of them, and there's some more. But during the 70s, they actually looked at race as being a component uh, for controlling the actions and efforts of black, brown people and minorities. But that's a hard conversation for America to digest because they point out that it's a couple key areas. One, in the area of government. That means that the Constitution, from the fabric of the government, is built in to have race as an issue. And then you put in other components, religion. That means that government and the religious community has to answer some hard questions. The religious community has to ask questions. Why did they marginalize or call a certain group of people heathens and put white gods before them? In the education system, that's where we teach history. We got to question, why was the education system designed to exclude black and brown people and their participation? And then in the economic position, you have to address that. How does free labor, slave labor, affect the economics, or what is better known as capitalism? So when you look at all those things, it's very difficult, especially for America, to have to digest and deal with all of those four elements, because you got to deal with the government and its participation. You got to deal with all the religious entities, Catholic Church, churches, uh, all the religious groups. You got to deal with the educational system. You have to deal with the economics themselves. So that makes it
Mhm.
very difficult for America to want to even talk about race. And should critical, meaning that we have to start critically thinking about race as a component and what was built into the fabric of this country to either impede, slow down, or eradicate black and brown people performance.
Yeah. And when you talk about the different components, and I'm thinking economics, if a black guy and a
Ooh,
white guy are the best of friends, they have the same economic interests and they want to go in business together. Now, if they wanted to go and get a loan, they may not get that loan because they have a black partner, you know, and the white guy, he won't be able to understand, why is it that I can't get this loan? I'm good for it. He's good for it. But, his parents didn't want him to know, about race. His parents probably taught them about race, you know, but they don't get the clear understanding in school either because they don't want them to teach it in school. So that's going to be a difficult task for them to
Well,
understand why I can't get this business. We both are good, you know. Why?
well,
This race thing. Same thing with
well.
houses.
Mhm.
Why we can't live over here? And children are saying, Jackie lives over here. Why can't we live over here? Well, Jackie is white and we're not. Jackie can live in this area, and or they charge a whole lot more for a house than you would a white person.
Well,
So
like you say, it gets very difficult when you have to explain, or even when it comes down to economics, when it comes down to jobs, businesses, and things of that nature. It's built into the fabric of America. Uh, Case in point, when we look at in business, minority contractors, it still goes back to big me and little you. In order for you to get this contract with the city, I'm I'll be the minority partner, meaning that I'll put my money up, and either I'll allow a minority secondary minority partner, which could be a woman or a black male. Now, by me being the white person, I'm already grandfathered in anyway, but now because of the system and the fabric that the system is built around, there's no way you can do business without including me. So those are subtle things that when you start talking about critical race theory, so people don't like to bring that out. We talk about history and all that, but people don't like to talk about built-in processes and procedures that maintain a position of white privilege. Okay, when you look at housing, when you look at the value of housing, uh, it's a given fact. Uh, if a white couple moves into a neighborhood, and that's the clientele they're looking for, the property value is going to go up and all that. Well, that's built into the system. That's built into the economic structure. That's built into the government structure because the banks say, well, we're going to make more money. We're going to get more dollar for the bang. Right? In essence, they selling houses to white people for higher amounts, and then they're selling and houses that black people have invested in for lesser money. So you start to lose economic wealth. So all these things are built into the fabric. So that makes it hard for people to address it because they say, well, I'm not getting a unfair advantage. This is no, I'm not doing this. So it becomes justifiable to keep that system going. That's why people get upset when you say critical race theory. Now, you could talk about critical thinking, and then they'll immediately talk about socialism, communism, all that type stuff. When you start talking about race as being an underlying factor in everything, I'm talking about everything, even when it goes down to religious views, political views, everything is already, that card is already on the table.
yeah, it is. I mean, if you even think about parks and recreations, race got something to do with that. Look at Lake
Mm-hmm.
Lanier, got
Okay, yeah,
race in there. Look at the park in New York, Central Park,
yeah.
race is in there.
Well, well. Let's break it down. How was race interjecting it? Because most people say, well, those people were farmers. They weren't doing anything with the land. Again, going in discrediting the people. Whether it's in New York, whether it's in Georgia, Lake Lanier, the Army Corps of Engineers says, in order for progress, we're going to dredge this area and for the future water supply of these cities. Well, they could have dug that lake anywhere. There's many mountains up the top of Georgia, but they say, you know what? These people don't matter. These are less people. They're marginalized people, and we're going to take their property. We're going to take their property. Lake Lanier, I forget the name of the town before it was Lake Lanier, but they basically flooded that area. They basically flooded that area, and that's where we get Lake Lanier. All those areas up there are covered. I mean, they're still homes, farmland, fences. As a matter of fact, when people die in Lakeland, black folk always have a legend behind the legend. They said when people get caught up in the undercurrent, that's because they get caught up in the fences that were built for cattle, and then they flooded that land, and now people driving boats and all that type of stuff over it. So again, the federal government hopped in and stepped in and decided that even though those black folk that was part of their 40 acres in a mule, that was part of their land. They just took that land, flooded that land over, and you ran out over 500 families. Same thing in New York. I mean, there are over 50 communities that were flooded. You can go to the Grand Canyon. Everywhere you go, there were systematic processes put in place to eradicate. Nobody really. Well, let's say even if you didn't want to eradicate and get rid of black people, you just didn't think about them. You just didn't think about them. You didn't think that their homes were valuable. You didn't think that their children were valuable. You didn't think that their belongings, their property were valuable. So the government put that in place. You go back to Rosewood. You can go any place where there were systems put in place automatically that said, well, black folk can only get this high. It's understood, especially in the South. People say, well, if you get too many Cadillacs, they're gonna get one of them. If you buy too much land, and it gets to a point where people feel that no matter what they do, somebody else is going to always come for your property. It come for your family, and you'll always be secondary on a lower scale when it comes down to how America feels about you. That's why critical race theory is important, but it unearths a lot of stuff. It unpackages a lot of prejudice. You gotta address so much. And believe it or not, most gray-haired white people don't want to be explaining to their grandkids these things.
Yeah, and see, and the thing is, they don't want their grandkids to know what happened in the past, but yet and still, they still doing that stuff today. I was looking at the
Right.
news the other day where I saw this all white man just speeded up and try to run over some black kids that was in the street. Before he started, he said 50 points. And then he said, stupid Ian. Just trying to run over these kids. They weren't doing anything, just riding their bikes. And why would you do that for these black kids? These are teenagers. They minding their own business, just playing, riding their bikes. And then this man want to run over. And then they say, we don't want our children to feel, ashamed that they're white. But white people are still doing this crazy, stupid stuff. They still doing it. And I don't understand it. Like this woman, this just happened last week in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where policemen stopped this woman. A traffic stop. He stopped her. And he get out of the car. And he was just yelling at her. And then she called 911, because she was scared for her life. She didn't do anything, and they got her, put her in handcuffs and put her in the car. And spectators saying, why are you doing this? And they talking about it was for her safety. Then what it boils down to, when she had called 911 for her safety, they arrested her for calling that in. Well, I guess it was false alarm. You know how you call police and it's nothing real? That's what they arrested her for. Because she called for her safety.
Well,
now she didn't do anything. She kept saying, "What did I do? What did I do?" She didn't know what she did, and they arrested her.
Wow,
and that's sad.
Well, I hope you get a good lawyer and put a lawsuit in again. But again, look what happened. Because of race. Now, people say race doesn't matter, but race does matter. Even when it comes down to the actions of black people against other black people, whether it be in law enforcement, whether it be in the banking industry, there's underlining in the fabric, there's underlining things that are already taught. Okay. And for people pushing up against it. They're saying, you know what, we need to change all that. One thing that the younger population is doing, they're saying, you know what, some of these things that have been traditionalized and indoctrinated into the fabric of America need to be looked at. Now, people say, well, you know what, you're trying to turn our government over. You're trying to take over our government. That's why you got governors in Texas and Florida, and even here in Georgia talk about we don't want critical race theory taught. Well, critical race theory is not to be taught. And we got to be clear here. That's not a subject. That's just a thought pattern of understanding why race is so critical in America. Now, if race was not so critical in America, when you bring up critical race theory, it would not be something that people would take offense to. You know what I'm saying? Because, like I say, it's hard to unpackage it without a whole lot of drama. One thing people saying, well, you're trying to make us a communist country. You're trying to rewrite the history. Well, nobody's talking about rewriting history. People are talking about addressing those underlying issues that are already built into the fabric of what we call America. From the government, meaning that from the rules, regulations. When you read the Constitution, I read the Constitution, we read it totally different than, say, a white guy. Because he looks at the Constitution as speaking to him. He's got those inalienable rights, the pursuit of happiness and things of that nature. Now, we look at those as being just a privilege, something that can be taken away from us. Even though we got amendments that have been going through the Constitution and upgraded it, all those things can be up for grab and rescinded at almost any time. When we look at how we worship, we say, well, if we want to go worship in the way in which we want to worship, there's always been retaliation for us doing whatever we wanted to do, to have our freedom, to be a part of society, even to go to schools and have our schools train and educate us at the same level, that other schools have. Well, when we look at history now, a lot of times we say, well, we just look at one component of what we say critical race theory is, and that's history. Now, our counterparts look at it as being something that say they want to rewrite history. They want to rewrite history. And I've had conversations with Black people and white people that thought that critical race theory was brought by Black Lives Matter. Believe it or not, Black Lives Matter didn't come. Well, no. What I'm saying, this just show you the ignorance factor of what the media has put into people's face. People think that Black Lives Matter came up with critical race theory. They did not. It got nothing to do with that. I'm talking about when you don't know or you hadn't done the research and you allow the media to throw a narrative out there to say, they're trying to rewrite history. They're trying to throw out all our old history books. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's doing that. It's not being taught anywhere. It's just a fear factor to move and motivate people to not have the conversation why race is so important in America.
Yeah, I mean, this history thing it's not to erase. How about adding to it, tell the whole truth and not a partial truth? Because when I was coming up, the only thing I was taught about Black people was that they were in slavery. That was it. And nothing else was taught about. I don't even remember them saying anything about Martin Luther King. No, they might have did, but I don't remember. And so, but we learned about George Washington and Christopher Columbus and all these other people, Abraham Lincoln. We learned all about them. So if you can teach them about your history, what about us learning our history? So for me to say, we need to know our history. Point blank. We need to know our history. They need to stop covering it up, whitewashing it. They need to stop saying that we don't want people to know the history. That's basically what it is. We don't want Black people to know their history because we did wrong, and we don't want them to know that. We want them to love us, to eat our poo-poo. That's what they want, and it's not happening. It's not happening because Black people are waking up. They are learning more and more about their history, and they see where they're coming from. Like some people think black people don't have anything because they are lazy, they don't want to do anything, they're dumb and all that kind of stuff. No, that's not the case. They don't have a lot of stuff because white people won't let them have anything. And when they try to get it, they try to take it away from it. Look at the entertainment industry. Whenever somebody try to do something, they do something to break them down. You can look at Bill Cosby, for instance. You know, he getting ready to buy a major network. What did they do? They sent the vultures in to break him down so he won't get it. Look at this other comedian. He had to do some lawsuits in order to get his networks. This company right now out in California is what is it? Punch TV. You know,
Okay.
the CEO of that company out there is two studio, Punch TV Studios, and the other one, they're sister companies. Okay. The
Okay.
white people are breaking them down, you know, because they don't want that big of a group of black people getting together and owning an entertainment industry. They were going
Okay.
somewhere. They broke them down. You know, now they're saying that they're trying to make the CEO look like he was doing something shabby. What it is, they don't want him to climb the ladder and bring all these other black people with him. They don't want them to be on the top level in the entertainment industry. That's for the white people. Black people can't do that. And they're going to do everything they can to stop them. They're going to do everything they can to make black people look bad when they're trying to climb up the ladder. That's what critical race theory is about, teaching the real truth. Teaching the real
Well,
truth about what is going on. I mean,
well,
I remember way back with Ida B. Wells when her friends had a business. You know, that was way back when her friends had a business.
right.
People put him in jail and killed him and burnt the place down because they were very successful. They don't want any black people to be more successful than they are. No, they cannot do that. And that's what it's all about. And they don't want
Well,
anybody to know that they broke them down. They killed them. They don't want more black
yeah.
people in this country because they're going to take over. They don't want black people to take
Well,
over. That's what it's all about. That's why they're killing everybody. That's why they having this abortion thing, because white people are not having enough white babies. They're being brown babies, you know. But the thing is,
well,
they are the one who started this brown baby stuff, messing with all these black people and having these babies. They're the one who started
well,
that, increasing the population. I can start talking on that one.
okay.
Now they don't want
You know, America is getting browner anyway. But again, uh, going back to the concept, this whole process of looking at America, you know, pulling the layers back. When you pull the layers of this country, I'm talking about every aspect of it. It's hard for America to say, you know, for us to say, here we are, and we want it equal for everybody, because that's the message that America puts out. We got an equal playing deck. Everybody's welcome. But America has always been unfair to black people. Okay. It's hard for America to look black folk in the eye and just see them as nothing other than economic producers for them. Now, that's a hard question. I'm not saying all white people are like that, but it's built into everything. When you look at the education, you look at the entertainment, like you brought up entertainment. When athletes start to talk back, what do? They say, you know what? All we want you to do is shut up and dribble. Okay. I don't need you to have an opinion about nothing. I don't want you to do nothing but bounce that basketball, throw that basketball, run that ball, and do what I tell you to do. So that's a mindset. That's an ideology that in your head that says, you know what? I don't care who you are. I'm always be in charge of you. And there are certain things built in to the fabric. One of the things that we found out, because now people are being challenged, and that fabric is breaking down. That fabric is breaking down. You're finding out that there were built-in processes and procedures that made it where you couldn't get a loan from a bank. There were built-in processes and procedures that were omitted certain things in history. You know, they'll say, well, you know, we were going to bring that up. We just forgot. My bad. Well, now all these things are being challenged. like when I say when you challenge the four institutions, the government, the religious community, the educational system, and the economic machine. When you challenge the government, the religious institutions, the education system, and the economic machine, that's when you get feedback. That's when you get backlash. And that's what's happening. That's why you get these governors saying they're trying to take over, they're trying to replace us. You see all these code words that are telling people, hey, if we don't stop this, if we don't stop this, if we don't stop this, guess what? We're going to be in the back seat and they're going to be in the front seat. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that means that there is something there. Now, for America to ignore it, and they've done it for so long, it becomes so comfortable. There are practices and procedures that even black folks feel that they shouldn't have. I was just reading some information about Clarence Thomas, and I was looking. Clarence Thomas is a very interesting brother. Very
Yeah, I was
interesting
just
brother.
thinking about
Uh,
him when you made that
oh
statement.
yeah, oh yeah. And you say, well, because you got to look. You say, well, I can understand why white people will want to maintain a white privilege, but I can't understand why somebody like Clarence Thomas or Herschel Walker, especially both of them from Georgia, why can't they see some of the things that are institutionalized racism? Well, both of them come from hardworking families, and both of them, as they say in America, had to pull themselves up out their bootstraps. They saw their folk. I'm pretty sure Herschel Walker and Clarence Thomas witnessed a lot of discrimination when they was growing up. A lot of discrimination. You got to say, well, how can you not see institutionalized racism in America? You know what I'm saying?
Because they both married white women and their brains been
Well, let's take
whitewashed.
that. Well, let's take that out of the equation. Let's just say they didn't marry white women. Well, you have to ask yourself, and that's how powerful white privilege is. Until we understand white supremacy or white insufficiency and white privilege, won't nothing ever make sense to us. That's a quote from I forgot the brother that did. He's very big on Dr. Henry Clark. Until we understand that, and even for our white counterparts, because they don't understand it. That's why they give so much backlash. Oh, you're trying to take over. You're trying to rewrite history. Uh, well, history was already rewritten when you ignore the efforts and actions of a whole group of people.
Mm-hmm.
You take them out of the Bible, you take them out of the Quran, you take them out of all the holy books, the Torah, and you replace them with animated characters that did not exist. You go and rape and pillage uh, the educational systems, the contributions of these people, and you reduce them to uh, chattel slavery, and you say, I don't have no explaining to do. So that's why see America's got a big black eye. Well, let's say a white eye. I hate to use derogatory terms when it comes to black people. Let's say America got a big white eye. And that big
Uh-huh.
white eye has put America in a position where they don't want to see certain things. It makes them feel bad. Now, America can go over in Germany and see all the bad things that Hitler did. They can go down in the Congo and see all the bad things that the Belgians did. America can go into Europe and see all the bad things that the British did. But it's hard for America to get that sty out of their eye. Because America cannot see itself as being wrong.
Yep. You're
They
right.
need therapy. America needs a therapy.
And it's not all of them. It's not
Not
all
all of them, but it's a
of
lot of them.
America, but it is it has its number. Let's put
Oh
it
yeah.
like that. They have their
And,
number, and some of them they know what's going on, but they don't want to admit it. They don't want to do anything
oh
about
yeah.
it. They just see it and keep going. That's what they're
And,
doing. But then there are
uh,
some who will stand up, but
mhm.
then there's some who want to keep the good old boy system going, and
Well,
it's
and
not working because the younger generation, that hadn't been heavily affected by the older generation, they see things different. You know, they
Mm-hmm.
don't want to hate their friends. They want to have other races as their friends, and get along with them. They don't want to hate people. They don't want to see
Well,
color. Like a lot of people say,
mm-hmm.
I don't see
Well,
color. They don't want to see color.
yeah.
But
Well,
it's the older generation is doing that. Well, but then
yeah.
they're pumping
Well,
it into the younger people. They're
oh
pumping it
yeah.
into the younger people.
Well, well, when we look at the history of America and the relationship between America and their black people, whether we were indigenous people already here or we were brought here, the relationship between America and the people has always been a problem. The relationship between America and other people has always been a problem. And this started when they first started the 13 colonies, okay? And they decided to
Mhm.
expand this territory and expand this experiment called the United States of America. When they expanded this experiment and went past the 13 colonies, they decided to push all the indigenous people as far away as they could, as far as away as they could. We was taught that the Indians were who? Savages, and they needed to be civilized. They were messing with white people and all this type stuff. And we bought into the concept. And then the expansion. People say, America said, we got to have this whole place. I'm surprised they didn't take over Canada and push them out. I'm surprised they couldn't go no deeper into Mexico. But, to explain that we took all of this. And then when they got to the point where they got more than 30 states, all these we were taught in school, the Louisiana Purchase, the Lewis and Clark expedition, all this type of stuff. America's got some great history. And when you look at the mechanics of it, you say, wow, well, the story has been told from the hunter's perspective. The hunter is always going to tell you why he got these trophies and why these animals need to be killed. And then you fast forward to the Civil War when America got their first problems inside America. America has, Lincoln, he said, you know what? I'd rather keep the Union together. Whatever I got to do. Now that hurt America because from that point on, America put a pacifier into the mouth of everybody, all white people. That pacifier was you white and you got entitlement. So let's get back to the business of keeping America America. And then they even after what they call Reconstruction, after the Civil War, America that promised the black people, they had a promise to black people, 40 acres and a mule, land, all this type stuff. And for 10 years, America tried to keep the promise. For 10 years after the Civil War, even after a year of not telling black folk in Texas that they were free, for almost 10 years, America tried to keep a promise until white people felt bad. They felt less. They say they got more than we got. They can vote. They are in these Senate positions. I'm talking about in the South, Mississippi, Alabama. Nobody talks about Reconstruction. That's a white eye in American history. Reconstruction. And that lasted from 1865 all the way to about 1890. And then after that, you started getting into the other presidents. There were more hangings because white people got really upset because of the advancements of black and brown people. And again,
Mhm.
this is in the government fabric, the religious community, the churches, because the churches birthed the Klan. Ku Klux Klan came right out of the church, crosses and all that. The
Yeah,
education
and you know
system.
what? That's one of the things I couldn't understand. Ku Klux Klan supposed to be a Christian organization, but yet and still they burn the cross. I couldn't
Well, well,
understand that.
well, the cross ain't got nothing to do with Christian organization. Again, that's propaganda from America. Okay,
Yeah.
see a lot until we understand. That's why I say every community has to address this, and that's why they don't want to get into the details. The devil is always in the details. When you get into the details, you start saying Reconstruction. Why did Woodrow Wilson show Birth of a Nation at the White House? Okay, why was there Jim Crow laws? Where was the Klan during the Civil War? The Klan did not
They didn't
exist during the
exist.
Civil War. No,
They
they
didn't
came
exist
about
until
later.
afterwards.
They, yeah, yeah. And you got to ask yourself, why is all of this being kept under the radar? Now that's part of, because when you start to lift that fabric and go through a microscope, critical thinking first, critical thinking, and then you gotta address everything: race, gender, economics. You got to address all of this stuff, and America does not want to address that because it
Nope.
points the finger right at them.
Yeah, you're right. You are so right. And one of the things I just discovered that Mexican dislike black people. I didn't realize
They
that. I'm
weren't.
going, what? Because I have a friend who has a Mexican neighbor, and she said
Mm-hmm.
they do not like black people. you know, it's like,
Who sounds
why?
all
And I
Okay,
don't
why?
understand it. But this, see,
Well,
the
well,
thing
you know what?
is,
Now,
it's
uh,
the white people who took a lot of their land,
no,
Mexico's land,
well,
because they took Texas from Mexico and they got other land from
hmm
Mexico. It's white people who did them wrong, not the black
well,
people. Yet still they don't like
again,
black
we
people.
we have to now again we have to understand when we talk about critical thinking and we talk about the building systematic process to either control the actions or efforts of a group of people. Now, when we look at it's built in uh, to put division between people, division between uh, uh, black and white people. Uh, now, white people try not to put a wedge between white people. White people try not to put a wedge between white people. White people, they don't even say it's a problem between white people. They say liberals and what? Conservatives. Okay, liberals. They don't bring color into the equation. It only gets to be color when we talk about us. Our relationship between us and Hispanic people. Our relationship between us and Indian people or indigenous people. Our relationship between other ethnic groups, even Africans. When you look at black and brown Americans and our relationship between my Nigerian, Liberian brothers. Well, that's a taught and built-in process of white supremacy to have us go up against somebody because you would rather have us fighting, stuff that don't exist. Uh, I have many Hispanic brothers from South America, to Honduras, Brazil. They know us. They know who we are. They seen the systematic racism that's down there because outside of America, it creeps right into that. So they see that. Now, I think sometimes we get caught up. We can get caught up into the propaganda machine that America uses to have us think one way. It's just like America uses poor white people. America uses poor white people and make them believe that they're being replaced. They make them believe that somebody's taking their jobs, somebody's taking their country. You see, all that's part of critical race theory or critical thinking. People start to believe that other groups or people are taking what is rightfully theirs. Okay, and that creeps in.
Yeah, but what I want them to do is to teach that Indians are not the enemy. The Indians were in this country first, and it was all those German, Hispanic, and Irish people, and all those other people came here, took their land, and killed them off. They portrayed the Indian as savages and don't know what they're doing. They lived fine. They had their own language, their own God, and everything else. They were doing just great. But then they came in and took over. But then they portrayed the
Okay,
Indians as savages. Indians helped them. They welcomed them to their country. But then they turned their backs on them, took their land, killed their people. But they're the bad people. No, they
well,
need to teach that in school. They
yeah,
need to teach those
well,
kids that because when they be playing cowboys and Indians, the Indians are always the bad people. You know,
oh yeah.
that's
Well,
not
look,
right.
all of us were taught that. We thought John Wayne and all the gun smoke. We thought Bonanza. We thought that was the way of the land.
Yeah.
What's that? Tonto, all this type stuff. Now look, now think about this. We have to think about this. We have to think about this seriously. We have to address when we start talking about critical thinking. Okay, critical thinking. You start to thinking about the things that affect you, me, and everybody else. Okay, at the top of the food chain is race, not gender, but race. A black
Mm-hmm.
woman automatically gets two strikes. Okay, one is the race. Okay, the second is what? Gender.
Female,
Oh, yeah.
the
Okay.
gender.
Now, when you look at that and we start to address those things, see, uh, you start to ask other questions. See, race is the biggest uh, thing staring us right in the face. We see that. But then we have to address other things, gender. Then we have to address uh, the caste system or the economic ladder. Where are we positioned based on our means to generate and produce for ourselves? Okay. Most of the time, race is such a driven factor until it clouds everything. It clouds everything. It clouds how we relate to other people. We start to visualize problems with other ethnic groups. That's why you would say, well, black and Mexicans don't get together. You got more black and brown people mixing and marrying each other without a problem. Puerto Ricans,
Mm-hmm.
uh, all Dominicans, all around. But that's another thing to put a division, and that's built into the fabric of America to divide and conquer, to divide and conquer. And when you divide and conquer people, you have them fighting amongst themselves for something that they should be getting. Anyway, when you look at poor white people fighting poor black folk, and when you look at white people, poor white folk coming into a community, we readily accept poor white people. Poor white people never have a problem coming into a black community. Poor white people
Right.
never have a problem coming to a black community. But you could be a rich black person and walk up into a white community, and you're gonna get a Becky, a Karen, or a Jonathan that's gonna check you because they say, "Oh, I didn't realize that you did not belong here." But I don't care what it is. I can go to any city in the United States, New York, Detroit, Chicago, Milwaukee, Atlanta, Jacksonville, even down south. There are white people walking the streets 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. They're not gonna get jumped on just because they white. Now somebody might jump on them, but it ain't racially motivated. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
See,
Yeah. And
nobody's
that's,
going.
go ahead.
Well, see, and again, that's where critical race theory happens because you got to say, well, why if race is only important on one side of the equation? Race matters to the people, the power structure. The power structure needs race in order to keep other people doing what they do, which is working for them. Bottom line.
Yeah.
Anytime you address that or challenge that, they have to come up with a mechanism or something to stop you from challenging that. Now, that's when you start to feel, even within the groups of black people, we start to separate ourselves. Clarence Thomas's uh, 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 Kamala Harris, we start looking at other black and brown people as different. We start to separate out the bougie, the bourgeois, all this type of stuff. We start even saying these ain't black folk, they're part of the Illuminati. All that is still part of what? This fabric that's known as America, that's got built-in processes and procedures to keep you off the prize, off the prize, and focus on anything else.
Yeah. And another race problem we have, like swimming pools. They would
Oh,
rather fill up a swimming pool with cement than to let black people swim in there with white people. And that's bad. And
well,
I've seen times where black kids go to a city pool to swim, and then all the white kids get out, because they don't want to be swimming with
right,
them, or they call the police
yeah.
on them. You know that
Well,
that
well,
doesn't make
uh,
any sense.
yeah. Well, again, until you understand white inferiority complex and white privilege, none of that stuff makes sense. You say, well, white, the same white people that would drain a pool, put cement in a pool, will allow you to breastfeed their baby. The same white
Mm,
people that will drain a pool, hang you for staring at a white woman, would still allow you to breastfeed their baby. So you got to ask yourself, uh, is it about control or do they hate us? It's all about control, and that's where
Yeah.
when you look at critical race theory, the components of America is about control to control the actions and efforts of Black and Brown people. Okay, even amongst ourselves, when the way we look at ourselves, the way we treat ourselves, we still have to deal with the fabric that America built in. We still fight each other over religious belief within the Black community. We still fight ourselves over education belief within the Black community. We still find ourselves fighting in the governmental structure, Black and brown people. We still fight amongst ourselves in the economic structure. We got the haves and the have-nots. We got Black folks that have pulled the ladder up and say, we made it. Y'all got to pull up. So again, when we start to look at race, and it's a lot of other problems. We got health issues, we got all kind of problems. But when you look at the machine that America uses to either impede, control, or maintain superiority over a group of people, the race is a powerful tool. Race is a powerful tool. Even when it comes down to Black folk using the N word. Okay? When it comes
Mm-hmm.
down to Black folk using the N word to describe themselves, that's built into the fabric of America. How can we teach them to hate themselves so much they'll call themselves and be proud to address themselves with a derogatory term that we created?
Yeah, but they don't. They when they use those terms, they don't use it in the same manner as white people you
Mhm.
mean it. Man, there's a lot of
Well, okay.
times
You well,
endearment. But they
well. Let
don't.
me ask you a personal question. You think a Jewish brother? You think one of our Jewish brothers will allow you to call them a name and say, you know what? You're not using it like Hitler and them. It's a term of
No,
endearment.
you have to
I'm
keep
not
it in
going
the
to even say the
family.
word. What's that?
Keep it. You when you're using the word, you got keep it in the family. Nobody outside the family,
No,
nobody outside that circle
no
can
other,
use that.
no other group of people. That goes back to critical race theory. We have been so indoctrinated until we will accept a term that we know is demeaning, we know means nothing of value to us. We've been
Yeah.
brainwashed, hoodwinked, bamboozled. That's a part of racism. We don't even know we being hoodwinked, bamboozled, and tricked.
Yeah, to say that we don't need affirmative action is being bamboozled too by somebody.
Oh yeah.
Clarence Thomas said that
Well,
you don't need affirmative action because he think everything is all cookie dough.
well, you
Yeah.
know what? And like I said, I just finished reading a book about Clarence Thomas, and Clarence Thomas is a very interesting brother. Again, he he understands systematic racism. He understands it. He's seen it face first. But at the same time, he's no different. And this goes back to racism than the brother saying, remember Soldier's story where the brother hated Black folks so much, uh, he wanted to kill the guy for singing and dancing because he just looked at that as shuffling and jiving. Well, you get brothers that say Clarence Thomas, they look at it like this. They say, you know what? If Black folk got opposition, it makes them stronger. He said, my granddaddy, because he had opposition, he got out and did something, even though they was doing everything to keep him from moving forward. They was threatening killing him and everything. His granddaddy had to go out and help do the things in the neighborhood because nobody else, no outsiders, okay, no affirmative action, none of that. So Clarence Thomas, in his mindset, he believed that in order for Black and brown people to be successful, they still got to compete in this hellish system that we call America. And he believes that you don't have to have no pacifiers, no affirmative action, nothing. He says there's Black folk, either they're gonna survive, they're gonna either sink or swim. They're gonna either sink or swim. And that's a hard philosophy to have. Herschel Walker bites into that same bullet, and Clarence Thomas as well.
Yeah, I mean, get out and work hard. I mean, do your best to succeed, but you shouldn't have obstacles thrown in front of you. No detours. Let them do what they can. Don't try to stop on all these stumbling blocks. That shouldn't be.
Welcome to America. Welcome to
Yeah.
America.
I mean, everybody wants to succeed, and a lot of people try. They try their best, but somebody's always throwing that wrench in there to keep them from succeeding. They're always doing that. So I think affirmative action is still needed. Because I mean, you look at some of these contracts. They want to give so many to minority, even if it's 10%, but yet still it's going to be a white person who's going to get a black person to back them up so they can get that contract. No one is supposed to be for black people. White people always just trying to sneak in there, always trying to sneak
set
in
aside,
and get everything.
Again, set aside privileges. Until we understand white privilege, nothing in America makes sense to us. Okay? Until we understand that. And even white people have to understand that, because they'll say, well, Reggie, I'll give up my white privilege. No, you won't. You won't give up your white privilege. You love it too much. And it's difficult, because even a white person on meth and crack knows that they got a chance. You put a brother on crack, what's going to happen? He's going to get locked up, possibly killed. You can put, because of white privilege, white people on crack and meth, and anybody got a drug dependency, my prayers to them. But a white person on meth, crack, prostitution, or whatever, guess what? They can go to therapy. Let your son, your daughter, your granddaughter, my son, my granddaughter, or my kids get into any problem. America does not have sympathy. America does not have sympathy. That goes back to critical race theory. Why is that? Why is that built into the fabric to protect some and hurt others? So we got to look at ourselves in the mirror. America needs a therapy session.
Yeah, and
they don't want it. They don't want it. They don't want that therapy session.
No, it's still happening in America, but yet still they don't want their kids to be ashamed of being white. What about the black people being afraid of being black? A lot of them are afraid because they are black. They're afraid to go out and do things. They're afraid that they may not come home alive.
Well, look at
it should go both ways. They shouldn't have that fear or that doubt either way.
Well, you look at
critical race theory is important. So some of the people can understand, those who want to understand, who want to do better, who want to make changes in this world. Critical race theory should be taught in school so they can do that. And it's not to make white people ashamed. It's to make them to understand what they are doing. Well, that's what it's all about. What it's doing, or how your actions affect other people. That's to me. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I think when we say it should be taught, that creates a problem, because we have to go up against the government, the religious communities, the educational system, and the economic machine. Okay, in all four of those areas, teaching people that race should not be a factor in determining certain things goes against the grain in the fabric of America. You got to break a lot of stuff down. Now, should we have the discussion? I think at a higher level, because critical race theory was first mentioned at the collegiate level, because it was so built into the fabric that nobody wanted to discuss it. Now, by the time they get it introduced into the lower levels of society, meaning that you teach it in schools, and you got to have some type of curriculum, because again, it will revert back to the racist principles that were taught before. If you don't put a handle on it, they'll teach stuff like slaves were happy, clapping their hands and singing Kumbaya. Black folk were so happy to get on those ships, and it's the best thing ever happened. So the propaganda machine, that's why we have to be careful what we ask for. We have to be careful what we ask for. That we black and brown people that would sell us out. And you be like, man, I can't believe they teaching that as a critical race theory thing. So we have to be real careful. We have to be clear, and we have to point out those things that are for the benefit of us as a race of people.
Yeah, and all black people didn't have it hard, so it's hard for them to say this happened and that happened. So I can understand that because as an actor and a storyteller, I was telling this story about slavery and stuff like that, and how people was treated. And this lady said that never happened in her family and her community. And my mom said that didn't ever happen. But then I run across other people say that happened to me or that happened to so and so. I know that's true. So every community didn't have the same experience in life.
All
So
skin
it's
folk
hard for
ain't
them to
kin
say,
folk.
huh?
All skin folk ain't kin folk.
Yeah, yeah.
You gotta
You're
think
right.
about it.
So it is. I guess when you say some people are turning on you, and not teaching the right thing, that's because they didn't have the same teaching, the same policies. Say I can't even think of the words I'm trying to use
Or
now.
they were so you know
Experience.
what, they were so indoctrinated into the system of white privilege that they don't see nothing else. They don't see another way out. And until you understand this system, won't nothing else make sense. Won't nothing else make sense. You can't make sense out of nothing. You can't even figure out why you behaving in the way you are.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. Some people can't, but I always analyze. While I do stuff, I analyze myself. I analyze other people. I may not say a lot, but I'm looking and I'm paying attention and I'm thinking. Why is this person doing that? Should I react this way or should I react that way? You know, they it's critical theory, thinking, critical thinking.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. So, in your opinion, should critical race theory be taught in school?
Um, with purpose and not with the current guidelines, because America has a way of tricking all of us.
Yeah. And what I want is the truth told. I don't want them sugarcoating stuff. You go lightly. For little bitty kids, there's only so much you want to feed children, small kids. But the bigger
Mm-hmm.
kids, if they seeing stuff and they're doing stuff, they need to be corrected. They need to be guided in the right direction rather than going
Mm.
down a hole. That they need that. But some people, like the old grandpa things, old grandpa who believe in white's power and all that kind of stuff, white is right. They're gonna teach their grandchildren stuff like that and the wrong things. So I don't think
Mm-hmm.
they should. I think those kids need another environment. They need somebody else to
Okay.
teach them the other side. There's two sides of a coin. There's a right side and a wrong side, the good side, the bad side. They need to know everything so they can think for themselves. Critical thinking. Think for yourself. Is this right or is this wrong? Do I want to love my brother? Do I want to hate my brother? Do I want to cause chaos or do I want to bring peace and joy? So it's needed. It's needed. They need to
Well,
think.
if you put emphasis on those things, then it would be taught in a powerful way. Do unto others, all that type stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think America is prepared to teach the truth.
Yep. Probably not.
I, I
But
don't
you
think
know
they're
what?
prepared.
The old heads are dying off, and hopefully they're not spreading too many seeds out there to keep it going. That's
True.
my thought. Hopefully they're not spreading too many seeds, you know. But then those people who are behind the power, they want to keep it going. Like
Oh
some
yeah.
of the policemen, they feel like they got that white privilege, they got that gun and badge behind them, and they can do people, the way they want to do it. Those people need to be cut down. I'm not saying that. Cut that. They need to know better. Let's do it
Well,
like that.
those
They,
are our brothers and sisters, and maybe through our efforts to talking, having conversations like this, I think the conversations are going to be a lead in for us to handle these things. Nothing really happens in the classroom; everything happens outside. Okay,
mm-hmm.
Classroom teach a particular thing, but the real world things are happening outside. And I think once the real world enters and people come to a conclusion that in order to make this a better country, make America great, or whatever, it's going to take a lot more than what these forefathers put in that Constitution. Okay, we're going to have to reinterpret how all this paperwork, how all this stuff affects us all, from race to gender, economics, all of that.
Yeah, you're right. So we have came to the conclusion of this show. You have been watching Good News at Prime Time with my co-host Reginal Drama. So critical race theory is so important because kids need to know what is happening and why it is happening. You just can't just throw stuff out there. You can't play with Sally Sue. Kanitra cannot come to your house. They need to know why. They need to know things like why mom and daddy has good jobs and they have this big fancy house and Shanae living in a shack. Why Shanae can't live in a better house? They need to know these things. Critical race theory, why her mom had to be the maid for my house. Why can't she get a better job? It's a lot of stuff that's going on. It's a lot. Even just not politics, promotions and jobs. There is so much. They would rather promote or hire a white person who don't know much rather than hire a black person who has all the credentials that you will ever need plus some. They would rather do that simply because of race. And I've seen it happen. Look, I'm a victim of it. I am a victim of racism on the job. Okay, so I know it's happening, and kids need to understand that. So I think it's needed in the schools. That's me personally. I think they need to know and understand because they having these black friends and Indian friends and Mexican friends, and then a lot of the white people don't want them to associate. They need to understand why. They need to know why. So it's good to be taught in school. That's what I say. And don't say we don't want our kids to be shame of being white. You still doing stuff. You still killing old people. You still using these racial slurs. You still doing all of this stuff, and they seeing all of this right now. All of this stuff is still going on. How can you say you don't want them to be ashamed? Stop doing it now. Stop doing it now so they can get a feel of what it's like to treat somebody right. Okay? They need to know how to treat somebody right. You are the example. Okay? So critical race theory to me needs to be taught in school, and it's not to make somebody feel bad. But sometimes just showing stuff, it's not all about the negative stuff. What about showing some positive stuff in school? What positive stuff was taught that black people did? What positive stuff that white people did? Don't just say white people did all the positive stuff. There's a lot of negative stuff in there, a lot of it. So everything needs to be taught, okay? On a gentle level for us lower level kids, just a gentle stuff. But for the high schoolers, man, they out there doing all kinds of crap. And some of it is based on what their parents and grandparents are teaching them. So they need to be taught the right thing. So until next time, I'm going to say it's Good News at Prime Time. I'm Sylvia Hayes, and y'all get your thoughts together. Have a good day.